Ohio State just played its third top five matchup of the season. Indiana played its first top five matchup ever. So much hype going into this game between the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers. Could Desmond Howard possibly be right? Could Indiana come into the shoe and knock out the Bucks? That was a decisive not today. Ohio State thumps the Indiana Hoosiers in front of a big crowd, and frankly, probably the loudest environment Ohio State has seen here in a little while. A decisive 38-15 final score as the Buckeyes knock out Indiana to bring rivalry week to the forefront. We got lots to talk about. Our live reaction on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Buckeye Breakdown postgame show, our live reaction, instant analysis after the Buckeyes suffocated Indiana 38-15 at the shoe. I'm Brendan Gulick, former Buckeye offensive lineman Kevin Woidke with us too. And Kevin, that was a ton of fun. Obviously, Ohio State got off to a little bit of a shaky start. They got the ball first, didn't really move the ball on that opening drive, and the easiest thing to script all week long, the opening drive for the other team, is a really effective march down the field, 70 yards, and Indiana jumps on Ohio State early. And the Hoosiers did not have 100 yards of total offense the rest of the game after that opening drive in one of these statement wins, certainly in Ohio State's season.
Oh, yeah. I talked about it at the beginning on Tuesday. I'm like, hey, Indiana's probably going to come out. They might come out early. They're going to be playing off a lot of emotion. They might go up 7 points. They might go up 10 points. Don't get discouraged. Don't get down. Just let Ohio State settle in. I mean, you hear stories of David versus Goliath. That's a biblical story. This is real life. And Goliath stomped David into the ground and threw him back down the Big Ten. I mean, it was, I don't want this to be like, I hate to say it. I think Indiana, I mean, depending on what happens in the rest of college football, after a loss like this, I don't see Indiana having a very strong resume for the CFP because they're, in my opinion, they've played one game this year against a CFP caliber team and they got boat raced. This is like when Michigan State went to the CFP against Bama in 2015. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens because a lot of other teams, especially, I mean, right now, I'm pretty sure Ole Miss is in the process of losing to Florida. I mean, they're probably going to be out of it. So there's a lot of disarray that can happen, and they are only one loss. But I mean, it's going to be tough. It'll be a tough resume to go up. If they have this resume as a Group of 5 team, yeah, they're the best Group of 5 team, and they're getting in the playoff. Sure. But as a Power 4 team, they don't have that luxury.
I mean, we have so many things to get into there, and let's just start with the whole boat raced thing. I'm glad you used that word because there are certainly people on social media saying that Ohio State ran them out of the stadium kind of thing. And in trying to be objective and fair and level-headed about this, I think Indiana's a really good football team. Like, I think they're a legitimate, really, really good team. I do think they're CFP worthy if there's 12 teams in the college football playoff. However, I think Ohio State it was sort of a, let's look at both sides of this. Ohio State left no doubt. And I definitely want to talk about scoring after Trey slides down at the end of the game as if to say, hey, listen, it ain't about me. We're selfless here. Let's just win the game and do this the right way. And then Ohio State calls a timeout, runs back-to-back QB sneaks to as Ryan Day says, leave no doubt. There was no doubt. That game, 2 kneel downs would have given the same effect. I want to get into some of the smack talk from Curt Cignetti in the offseason saying Ohio State sucks, and then trying to walk that back this week and what it must have been like in the building this week, because that clearly stuck with the Buckeyes. I don't know that I would say Ohio State boat raced Indiana today. I think Ohio State was far and away the better team, and I think they made Indiana pay for 2 enormous mistakes. Ohio State scored 14 points off of Indiana's punt team. And certainly I'm not taking it away from Caleb Downs. It was an amazing punt return. That was a sort of like a legit 7. But the other one is a fumbled punt that the punter, I mean, it hit him right here. It wasn't a bad snap, right? So I guess when I think about, like, did Indiana hang with Ohio State? To me, yeah, they did. They're not as good as the Buckeyes. But I mean, look at what Ohio State's offense did today. Only 316 yards of total offense against a top 5 team. The Buckeyes were penalized 8 times. I know there's a lot of people that probably feel like this game was not well officiated. Ohio State was 4 of 11 on third down, right? It's not like they had their will against the Hoosiers. What I'm trying to do here is say, let's pump the brakes a little from my perspective on saying Indiana's trash. They're not good. They shouldn't be in the college football playoff discussion. I think this is a really good team. I think Ohio State's got NFL players at every friggin' position on the field. And unless you are of that ilk, you're probably not going to beat them. I think Ohio State and Oregon are far and away the 2 best teams in the country this year. And they're probably going to play each other another 1, maybe 2 times.
I agree. I think here's why I think that the score was closer than what happened. I mean, there are two distinct chunk plays that got called back and resulted in a field goal and a punt for Ohio State that would, in my opinion, have been 2 more touchdowns. Like, I mean, you add another 12 points on top of this victory, and you do say boat raced.
Yeah.
But that's where my thought prop, both on screens, and that first drive when they're moving down the field, even the second drive, there was a few. Okay, Igmanos is notorious for his defensive penalties. There were, watching it, that one of them on the second drive wasn't pass interference. It might have been holding, but it wasn't pass interference, and they get a 15-yard chunk out of it. Like, that's where that's where I'm kind of like, Indiana's a very good team. If anything, this helps the group of 5 teams that are coaching, because this was their all-star team. This is the greatest collection of group of 5 football players, and they're all in Indiana, and they're 10-0. It shows that there's football players, good football players, out of the Power 4. No matter what the big people are saying that it's the Power 4 and everybody else, they're just spread out a lot more amongst the Power 5 or the group of 5. But I mean, it showed, like Pons, for example, phenomenal DB. He's 5'9".
He's really, really good.
He's really, really, like, man, if he is 5'11", he is the top corner in the nation right now.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt. He stat-wise, he almost is. But, like, I'm saying he's a first-round talent if he's 5'11". But he's 5'9", and 2 inches is a lot when you're trying to guard DK Metcalf at the next level.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's just what shows
is at this level.
Exactly.
The catch he made in double coverage on the sideline, where he holds the ball like this out in front of him. I mean, you're like, that's not defensible.
No, and he almost had that touchdown with the one hand, which should have been pass interference too, because he held his other arm down. But that's where we could nitpick the officiating all day. I don't really want to get into it. The part I want to talk about is how well this offensive line played when everybody week was worried.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best Hinsman's ever played at center in his career at Ohio State. Austin, who had a good start to the year, then a little up and down when he would come in, played really well. Like, the offensive line played well. I mean, we weren't getting 2-3 yard pushes that we saw last week, and that we saw when we were a fully healthy offensive line with Simmons and Donovan, like, both on that left side, that were just moving masses of people. But I mean, it was impressive.
CJ West is a legit nose tackle. It's not like they went up against a bad defensive line. Like, I totally agree with you. I thought Tegra maybe a little bit shaky at times today. Donovan Jackson played a better game than what the box score will give him credit for, because they had 2 really bad block in the back calls against him. I thought he has looked really good, and his draft stock is certainly rising, showing he can play guard and tackle. I totally agree with you. Carson Hinsman played his best game in recent memory at center. Josh Fryer was largely pretty good. As a unit, that group, I thought, made quite a statement today, because you're right. That was the conversation coming in, was you lose a guy that's probably on track to win a Remington Award. You lose a left tackle that certainly looks like he can be a legitimate, like actual starter in the NFL at left tackle. You take those two guys out, and how are you going to function against Michigan, who has run the ball all over you the last couple of years, and working through a CFP, that wants to establish a run against you? Like, that's when Ohio State has lost the last few years. They haven't been able to stop the run, and they haven't been able to run the ball effectively. And so there's all this time and attention spent on this group. And to your point, they were way better this week than I think most people expected them to be.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, West was the Kent State team last year. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened when he left. I mean, people talked about it. Like, Kent State wasn't great last year either, but they talked about this nose tackle. He's the real deal. I remember hearing it from a bunch of different people that are very tuned into action. But I mean, he showed it. I mean, that is a NFL nose tackle. That is an NFL interior lineman right there, and he's playing like it, going up against a perennial offensive line. I mean, minus Hinsman. I mean, Double T and Fry have been there all year. Like, those are good. Those are good linemen, and he was cutting through them and doing everything. He was that defensive line, and I just thought it was impressive. One, he was impressive, but two, just how well they played today as another iteration. I mean, this looks like the Ravens roster from 2 years ago when they ran out of the amount of different 44-man rosters they could do. That's our offensive line. We're running out of different people. Like, the only way I see something different is we throw G. Scott in a tackle is the only other variation we're waiting for at this point.
He can probably do it.
He might be able to. I mean, he is elite.
Listen, there's a lot of individual performances that I want to get to, but before we do that, I think the lasting impression from this game was the final 2 minutes of the game. And I'm glad Fox captured it. Trey slides down. It looks like Ohio State can just kneel out the clock, and they decide, no, we're gonna put the guy who our offense right now is built around, Will Howard. We're gonna run him into a pile of humanity when he doesn't need to, 2 plays in a row to get in the end zone, because they wanted to send a message. And then when Fox cut to the sideline and watched Will do this and throw it on the ground and squish it with his foot, to me, that was maybe not intended to be picked up for national TV, but it sure speaks to the fact that Ohio State felt like they were slighted a little bit and wanted to say, listen, this Indiana story's been really nice. They're good. They're a legitimate good team. But it was like Myles Garrett on Thursday Night Football saying, I'm number one. I'm the guy. That was the Buckeyes saying, did anybody forget that we're still Ohio State around here? And if you want to win this league, you got to go through us. And a chance to sort of remind little brother in the conference, Indiana, who's been a great story, an up-and-coming team that's got a lot of momentum, that they still got a long way to go. I thought that there was like an edginess to that at the end of the game that you typically only get from a veteran team that can talk the talk and walk the walk. And I thought Will Howard played his ass off today. It was probably his most complete game as a Buckeye. He only threw 4 incompletions. You can make an argument that one of them should have been a pass interference that wasn't called. And another one was, the interception was a good defensive play, but Jelani probably could have caught that. I liked the edge that Ohio State had at the end of that game, because as Ryan Day said postgame, like, rivalry week begins the moment that hits 000. And Ohio State's been waiting a long time for Michigan to come back. I like where this team's at mentally right now.
I agree. I mean, it took them a while, but Michigan kind of learned it. You don't like it. The last thing you want to do is add fuel to the fire. Like, you don't want to do it. It's not hard. Like, when we prep for those Michigan games, it was just Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard saying Michigan's going to come into Ohio State and win, or Ohio State's going to show up here and we're going to dominate them. And then we listened to that all week long. And I guarantee the same thing happened with Cignetti. And he definitely regretted it, but he just went down the list. It's like, terrible. I forget. I think he said sucked. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you?
I think he said Purdue sucks, but so does Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah. And I'm like, why? If anyone who knows, like, we would go, like, sometimes at Ohio State, we'd go play at JO South and play some basketball at JO South. And it was always like, oh, we're having fun. We're all good athletes. But the minute you poke the bear, it turned into it was alley-oops to Gary on Conley. It was Rashad Berry painting the ball against the backboard and yelling and chirping. Like, don't poke the bear. Like it's just so easy to just come in and be an under the radar team and be like, hey, oh, they're 10-0. We're going to overlook them. Like, it's still Indiana. But no, it's Indiana, and they're talking unbelievable amounts of crap. It's like, oh, okay, perfect. Now here's our motivation. We didn't have motivation against Indiana. Now we do.
Yeah. No, you mix the hyper talented team and put them in a hyper competitive environment, and it's not going to go well.
No.
And I mean, I saw what Justin Fry said in the Skull Session pregame, and there's a part of me that's like, I thought maybe before the game started that kind of lit a fire under them, but watching it manifest at the end of the game was the very emphatic punctuation mark at the end of that sentence. And look, it's been kind of on brand. Ryan Day says all the time, leave no doubt. If it comes down to one play, then fine, but we don't want it to. And I thought that was Ohio State's way of saying, listen, we're the team to beat, and good for them. They've earned the right to do that. They've played really well this year. They haven't been perfect. They want Oregon a second time. And here's the deal. Ohio State has to beat Michigan next week to get into the Big Ten title game. So it's not even just the retribution and the rivalry, although that will certainly take center stage, that if they lose next week, I don't want to say that there is no chance, because I know there are a bunch of scenarios, but I know that if they lose next week, they need a lot of help to be the team that gets to Indianapolis. If they win, they're obviously in, right?
Yep.
It's all in front of them. You control your own destiny. And if you want another crack at Oregon, and Ryan Day still talks about how winning the Big Ten is meaningful to them, you got to win. Every game's a playoff game here on out. And I thought the fans showed up today. I thought the team looked prepared. I was thoroughly impressed with the way this defense performed. Let's get into some of the individual performances. Why don't we just start on the defensive line? For so long, the knock has been they can't finish off the pressure that they're generating. That wasn't a problem today.
No, there was one point. It was the sack where they were like at their own 5. It was right before I can't remember what point in the game it was. You had Cody Simon running at the middle, and then you had Jack Sawyer and JTT around the edge. Rourke had literally nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
It was 3 of our 4 best defenders. It was literally those 3 and Caleb Downs have been our 4 best defenders this year. When you have all 3 of them barreling down on you as a quarterback with nothing between you and them, I would never want to be in that spot. I'll tell you that right now. And then they got the sack, and it was unreal. It was just like, and that's what you saw today was a lot of sacks. It wasn't pressures. It was 5. Like, I'd love to know how many we had for the whole year, but that has to be over 50% of it. Like, I mean, maybe not. I bet we've had more, but it just felt like it was so many. Like and it was everybody flying around. I mean, the Cody Simon strip sack. Like, I didn't even know it was a strip. I was excited because it was a sack.
Listen, nobody knows a strip, and I usually don't say this because a lot of my professional career is as a play-by-play announcer. Okay, sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes things happen. You don't see it quite right in live action. I get it. Gus Johnson is not what he used to be. And I think the last couple of weeks, he has really struggled to be the feature guy on the feature package on one of the biggest networks in the country. I just think Gus is losing his fastball a little bit. And there were several times today where I'm like, that a blatant miscall, including on that play. He literally never said that the ball was fumbled. Never said it. Nobody knew. All of a sudden, Ohio State's offense is going to feel like, wait, what?
Like, I didn't know until that replay. If I understand that he might not have seen it if he's watching the monitor or if he's watching from up there, but like, I think that Gus is just sick of the Buckeyes. He's been at Ohio State. He's been dealing with Ohio State all year. I think he just wants more variety. One, I like Gus Johnson. I do. Some people don't like him because of the amount of nicknames he has. Some people don't like him. This year has been definitely he hasn't been on his A game. But I just think like he's been in Columbus. He's almost he might even be registered to vote in Ohio after how many times he's been here. But it's crazy that it's a top 5 game. You got to get up for
he's just
it.
missing things is what it comes down. I don't care if he likes him or not. The job is to call the game well, and I just don't think he's doing a very good job of it. But I don't want to make this a show about
Gus Johnson.
Yeah, the point is Ohio State's defensive ends have caused a ton of havoc, and diehard Ohio State fans have paid enough attention to Caden Curry to know that he's the real deal. Mm-hmm. Nationally, I don't know that he's getting the attention because all the conversation is around 33 and 44. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, they're going to be big-time NFL draft picks. Maybe they don't have the numbers that the Bosas or Chase Young did, but like those guys are going to be bona fide NFL legitimate pass rushers. And that's great. 92 can freaking play, man. Caden Curry is unbelievable and is going to be, in my opinion, outside of Caleb Downs, he's going to be the focal point of this defense next year.
He has to be. I mean, I think the other person you're going to see, he has played great on special teams all year, is CJ Hicks. Yeah. I mean, he sprung that punt. He was blocking 44, who I think was a tight end. And then he blocks him all the way to the sideline, and then 44 tries to spin back, and he pulls the rug out from under him, and then takes his hand and pushes his chest into the ground. Yeah. And then Caleb Downs obviously takes a million miles. I didn't even notice it. My little sister called it out, like number 11 with a pancake. I'm like, what? And then I go back and look, and I'm like, oh, you're right. Good eye. Yeah. Oh, my little sister knows ball. That's for sure. But yeah, no, it's I'm so excited for people. There was a lot of hype going into this year about our defense. The flashes I've seen of the guys that will be playing next year get me so excited for next year.
Well, and that's the part of this, right? Like, you try so hard to live in the moment, but college football fans are constantly looking at 3 things. How are our guys doing at the next level? And there's obviously a lot of Ohio State players that are killing it in the NFL. And so you take pride in that. You can't let the current product suffer. And right. So people are obviously proud of what, as a fan, you're proud of what you see in front of you, but that constant insatiable need of like, what's coming next? How are we not going to have a drop off? When you look at this defense and how many guys chose to come back this year, there are going to be a lot of new faces in regular roles next year. And so to get opportunities to see Arvell Reese playing the way that he's playing, obviously, you mentioned CJ. I think Mitchell Melton has looked really good. McDonald's looked great on the defensive line.
Who's the freshman that got the unsportsmanlike last weekend? Edwards or Edmonds or he got the unsportsmanlike conduct last weekend. He was a true freshman. I can't. He looked good last week against Northwestern. I mean, he obviously has emotions to get the best of him, but I can't think of his name. I'm terrible with names.
Well, Malik Hartford will play well. I don't know why I'm like completely blanking on. I was there. I don't know why I'm blanking on who had the unsportsmanlike last week, but I think I remember that it happened.
It might have been 2 weeks ago, but I thought it was last week.
Caleb Downs. I saw the tweet that Colin Cowherd put out, and actually I thought this was worth bringing up. Colin Cowherd said that an NFL GM told him this week that Caleb Downs would be the first pick in the draft this coming April, right now, even though he's not draft eligible. He is playing like he is a Heisman caliber player. He's not going to win the award. Let me be very clear. Caleb Downs is not going to win the Heisman, okay? But if there is any college football coach in the country that would tell you right now who they could build a defense around, I don't know too many people that wouldn't say number 2 first. Caleb is playing on a different level. And his addition to this team this year, I think, has made all the difference in this defense. It's made Jordan Hancock better. He's made Lathan Ransom better. He's made Cody Simon better. He's made Sonny Styles more versatile because Sonny can come down and play what is right now like an All-American caliber linebacker. What I didn't understand about this game was Indiana's evolving strategy late, because they couldn't give Rourke the time that he needed. I was stunned that they didn't throw more bubble screens or back shoulder throws, which they've been really good at this year. Get the ball out of his hand. Ohio State was killing them at the line, and they wouldn't throw those plays. I didn't get that, because I don't know how you see it, but I think Ohio State is vulnerable at corner, and I would throw at number one all game. I would literally throw at him all game long.
He runs how he chooses to cover, similar to how what's his name, former Browns tackle, now covers the Browns, was James Donovan's co-host. I'm blanking on his name, older guy. He held every play in the NFL. And he's like, they can't call it every time. Igbinosa, every time he does pass interference, and his mindset is they're not going to call it every time. I mean, it's just what it is.
And they'll call it every time.
I mean, it's crazy. It's just it. Yeah, I agree. I think that, maybe it's a tactic of him that they choose to use, because it gets in the head of these wide receivers and it gets them off their game. It's just, I agree. I think that left tackle got put on an island a lot, where he had Cody Simon on his inside, and I think it was Lathan Ransom or Caleb Downs on his outside. I don't know who you pick between those two. It was the play where you flip a coin. It was the play where Cody got the sack. I mean, you stick your arms out in either direction and hope you clothesline them both. I don't know. Like it just. You feel bad for that offensive line. They got the full force of Jim Knowles being like, all right, everyone's talking about me not doing anything on pressures. Watch this, just went. And I was thinking this might happen because maybe he was trying to save it for bigger games. I don't know why he would. I mean, we've won enough to this point. He should have used them against Oregon, but didn't. And now you're starting to see those get home and starting to see those happen. And you're like, okay. And it's just that the only problem is with these two corners that just seem to have too much confidence to the point where they assault people every time they go out for a pass, or not enough confidence. That, I mean, Denzel Burke looks like a shell of himself. The guy's got no confidence. I feel bad for him. Like, come on, kid. You got to keep your head up.
Along the way, man. Like, Jermaine Matthews has got to start seeing more time. Every time 24 plays defensively, I feel like Jermaine Matthews is playing with more confidence, if nothing else, than Denzel and Davison. And I appreciate the loyalty that the coaching staff is showing to Igbinosun in particular. Like, he is the most penalized defensive player in the country. And against teams that can match the physicality that Ohio State has at the line of scrimmage, like, that's going to burn you. Somewhere along the way, that's going to burn you. And, I sure hope it's not next week. Start there.
I agree.
This comment here about Houston, for non-diehard Ohio State fans, it's not Houston the city, that's Edric Houston. We didn't mention, but another guy who I love what we've seen from him, and kind of moving from the outside to the inside into a 3-tech spot. I mean, he's looked really, really good. I can't wait to watch him next year too.
Yeah.
On the offensive side of things, like, I had a few things I wrote down about this game that really stood out. Maybe more than anything else, I walked away from this game going, gosh, Trey Henderson, there were some times in his career where he started to wonder if he was going to be able to withstand the physicality that position, really brings on. And you wonder, like, is he durable enough? Like, he's obviously got the speed, right?
Yeah.
There were some moments where you just wondered, like, is this guy going to be a bona fide NFL, like, star running back? Because he came in as a 5-star recruit. He's been such a great Buckeye. He's such a likable guy that fans can really gravitate toward. And he's had some great highlights in his career. Watching how elusive he is, and yet how physical he's playing this season, to me, has shown that Travion is really evolving. And I know they brought Quinshon Judkins in, and I love his addition in this backfield. I think Travion is still running back number one for me.
I agree, but I also think that Quinshon getting the amount of reps he's gotten has severely helped Travion, because Travion has been this guy at the beginning of every season. He's been the running back. He's been the downhill run through people, but then by week 7 or 8, which happens, there's a little of attrition because he's taking every single shot.
Yeah.
I think that I think that there's a causality to it, and I think it is Quinshawn being able to take half the rushes.
It's a great
point. Or more, because I think that Quinshawn has shown that he has the durability to be an every down back. And I think Travion is kind of growing into it, but he was the guy. He was every single down. He's running on third downs. He's running out for passes, pass block. He's the better pass blocking running back by far.
Yep.
He's the more downhill running back, in my opinion. He runs through people. But when you're like that, that's just what happens. Like, look at it's Spears and Tony Pollard in Tennessee. They both were their own, and they were Tony Pollard in Dallas was nothing, and Spears wasn't. He was a backup to Derrick Henry, but like them together have been a pretty solid running back duo this year, and that's where I see Quinshawn and Travion being like that, where it's like they have both been able to complement each other so well and been able to play so well together. It's impressive.
Q finished the day 14 carries for 36 yards. Travion had 9 carries for 68 yards, including the 39-yard run toward the end of the game there. So it's not like Ohio State ran the ball down Indiana's throat.
No.
Frankly, it was more of a throw game today, and a lot of shorter throws. It's not like they took a bunch of deep shots. I thought Will was outstanding. He was so good with the football today. Pinpoint accuracy. 22 of 26 for 201, 2 touchdowns, the interception on the ball that was somewhat caught by Thurman and then like deflected up into the air and into a defender's arms. You could even see Will's reaction as he came off the field. He was taking his helmet off. He's like, what? Like, how did that get picked?
Right.
I thought it was a pretty good throw. Emeka Egbuka had a really nice day today, 7 catches for 80 yards. Carnell Tate, great to see him continue to play well, 4 catches for 68. To your point earlier, the coverage on Smith I thought was really good. Pons did a great job. Smith caught 3 passes for 34 yards. Ohio State had a couple of screen balls that were caught out of the backfield. G. Scott had 2 catches for 6 yards, and Jelani Thurman had the 1-yard touchdown catch. In the game, like the Buckeyes had some resistance. You look at the final score and you think 38-15, like they must have overwhelmed them. And I really don't know that was the case. Like I said, they scored on a punt return for a touchdown and, obviously capitalized on the fumbled punt. To your point, yes, there were a couple of pretty critical penalties that wiped away what could have been additional scores. But, I mean, Ohio State, like they do a great job in general of making teams pay for mistakes. You have to pretty much pitch a perfect game if you're going to beat Ohio State. And, looking at Indiana's drive chart, like they open the game, 11 plays, 70 yards, they get in the end zone. The next, 9 drives they had? Yeah, next 8 drives. Punt, 6 plays, 8 yards. Fumble, 3 plays, -7 yards. Turnover on downs, 8 plays, -4. They kneeled out the clock at halftime. Their first drives of the second half, 3 and out, 2 yards, 3 and out, 8 yards, 5 plays, 32, and 3 plays, -11 yards. All those ended in punts. They never could get going against Ohio State's defense. And when the Buckeyes got the ball, they scored on the first possession they had in the third quarter, punted, field goal, touchdown. At one point, Ohio State had scored on 5 out of 5 out of 7 possessions. I beg your pardon. They had the interception and a punt mixed in there. So I look at the way Ohio State played over the full 60 minutes. Their defense completely suffocated. A good quarterback, although I wouldn't say a great quarterback. They never let Indiana get the run game going. They never let them stack wins over the course of the game. And they left no doubt by the time the game was over. And Ohio State right now is looking at the rest of college football saying, we don't really care what you think about us. We have 2 top 5 wins this year, lost 1 game on the road at the number 1 team in the country by 1 point when they felt like they probably beat themselves. That they look like the team to beat. And that's why they're the betting favorite to win the national title right now.
Yeah. I mean, they are. At one point, we went on a 28-0 run. I don't know what that ended up being. The only reason
it was 31-0 because
it was 31-0. The only reason it sticks in my head is I got a text from a buddy saying we've been 28 or up on a 28-0 run since Nico walked into my apartment. I'm like, shout out Nico. You guys need to watch games together for the rest of the year. But it was it did like you said, like our defense stepped up and then our offense delivered. I think you mentioned him, Carnell Tate. You're going to look back at this game and be like, where was the turning point? Where was like, okay, Indiana could start to stack something going, but we just kept chiseling through. Carnell Tate in that 4th down reception, that entire drive. I remember getting text me like, who is Carnell Tate? I'm like, I've been talking about him all year. I mean, he was that, like, you look at our wide receiving room right now, and you obviously have you have Jeremiah Smith, you have Mbuka, you have Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis as the other two. Like, when Mbuka goes on to the next level next year,
Yeah.
it's not going to be really a drop-off of him coming. You're going to fit Ennis or Tate in where Mbuka was, and then you're going to have them both in the field all the time. Like, it's wild. And then we have that 5-star top receiver in the country just committed. Like, it's unreal how much we just keep reloading. We have an abundance of riches. Like, I could see, like, it might be the best wide receiving this year and next year. Might be the best wide receiving room since 2019 LSU.
I don't know. I mean, Olave, Wilson, Smith, and Jigba and Harrison in the same room was pretty good too.
Right. That was really good too. But I mean, you're seeing like Marvin Harrison's obviously going to be great. Chris Olave hopefully stays healthy. He's had a good NFL career.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson looks. I mean, it's unreal. Like, you're going to look back at this run of Ohio State. If they perform like do it in the NFL like they are in college, you're going to look back and be like, over an 8-year span, they pumped out the best rookie wide receiver every year.
I mean, Brian Hartline, it's like give him a blank check. What do you want, Brian? Like, I mean, I don't think he really has any. Honestly, I don't think he has any aspirations to go anywhere. He loves what he's doing at Ohio State. That doesn't mean he doesn't maybe want some additional roles along the way, but like Brian made it pretty clear over and over again that like this is where he wants to be and who he wants to be doing it for, and he's doing it at the highest level.
I mean, he is. I got coached by him and his brother Mike, both great guys. But I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know why no one's even. Maybe they have tried, but like, you're telling me someone hasn't looked at Brian Hartline, 1, recruiting, and 2, the stuff he's pumped out at one of these big time schools, calling him, be like, hey, come coach our team. I don't think the only aspirations I think he sees, he loves Ohio State, is him taking over for day whenever that happens. Like, I that's the only thing that I could see him being like, okay. But and who knows, maybe that changes 4 or 5 years down the line. I hope it never does. But like, he is gonna go down as one of the best wide receiving coaches ever in college football if he keeps pumping out these players.
All right, let's wrap talking about Indiana for a minute, because there was a lot of hype around this game coming in. Indiana's 10-0, strength of schedule stinks, but I mean, the resurrection of a program that Curt Cignetti said when he made those comments as he was being introduced to the basketball game, he goes, listen, I was trying to figure out if my fan base was dead or asleep, right? Like, it's a basketball town through and through, and he was taking his first opportunity as a major Division I Power 5 college football coach. He's trying to rile some people up. He tried to walk it back a little. But I want to know, from your perspective of somebody that played at this level in environments in that stadium, knowing what it's like when you've got somebody that's poking the bear. On the other side of it now, like, did you look at Indiana and say, like, yeah, this is actually, like, really actually a huge game? Or is this, no, I think Ohio State is substantially better than this team, and they're a good story, but the Buckeyes are going to pound them? Because there weren't very many analysts that were bold enough to say pregame that the Buckeyes were going to bludgeon the Hoosiers. Most people said this was going to be a one-score game. It was going to be really tight. And I'm pretty sure the only one that I can remember was it Brady Quinn or Matt Leinart? One of them said on the Fox Big Noon kickoff pregame show that they thought this game was going to be like a 42-21. Ohio State was going to roll them. And I really didn't see anybody else coming out with that.
No, I mean, I got text today. I think I was more – I truly think the Seth McLaughlin injury kind of threw me. I was very confident up until that point, and then I'm like, I think that with this offensive line, it'll be a much closer game. Up until then, I'm like, it's Indiana. That was my mindset. I was like, hey, I don't think they're really anything. I got text 2 weeks ago, was an Ohio State covering their 13 and a half. I'm like, they're doubling that. Now I got text this morning, is Ohio State covering 10 and a half. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know. And I'm like, I think that Seth getting hurt played a huge role in what shook my confidence a little bit. But I mean, it looking back on it, I should have known better. I mean, Ohio State was a superior team. It was a matter
when Indiana scored the first touchdown. And
Mhm.
again, like I don't bet. That's not my thing. I've never
Right.
played a sports bet in my life, but I at least pay attention a little bit to this stuff because it's what people want to talk about. The
Right.
live betting line after that first touchdown went down to 3.5.
Yeah.
3.5. I
Right.
was like, wait, what? There's no way.
No, well, that's just how everybody goes. Everybody goes, oh my gosh, like, because they did. I hate to say it, we went 3 and out, and then they drove it down our throat. Like
For sure.
it looked like they were going to have a commanding presence, but it's similar to when you ever watch boxing, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Like that's just what happened. We got knocked down off the rip, but then we popped back up and just kept laying into them after that. Like they looked at us after they were like, all right, they're down for the count. We popped back up, and they were like, what just happened? It was like when you'd hit your older brother a little too hard growing up, and you're like, my bad, this isn't going to go well.
So how about from this perspective then? If the line was 10.5 at the start of the day today, is 23.5 enough next week?
I don't know. My mentality is always throw everything out for
I mean, that's how
for
I
a
feel.
rivalry game. Like I think it's going to look like a comedy show where there's going to be a strict no camera policy. Everybody's phone's going to get locked away, but I hope not. I want the threes to get in and score 2 touchdowns. I want everything to be taken from this school. They've got the Oracle guy who's now funding their NIL. Good for you. There's going to be a cap on it in 5 years anyway. Like it's over. Like you get 3 years, but you also need the coaches on the field that are going to do that. Are going to make it worth this guy's money. But I mean, I'm like, I want to bury him. I want to bury him over again. Then I want to dig him up and bury him again, and then a third time, and maybe even a fourth time. I cannot express enough how much I'm going to be in Columbus for the game. I'm not going to the game. I'm going to be at a bar. I'm going to be. I'm staying at my buddy's house. I'm going to be at his house before the game. We're going to go find somewhere to watch the game. I might not have a voice. I don't know how I'm going to do my cold calling at work the next week. I am going to be yelling, screaming. I am so excited. And what I want is like a 2018 game where it's 64-10 or whatever the final score was. It felt 64-10. I think it was closer, but I want to see. Oh my God. What I want to see might not happen, but I'm so excited for this game. It's crazy. It's the most excited I've been since 2019. And I think that the only reason, aside from some well-policed fake mustaches, that Michigan was able to bring it back. The only way that they were able to come back and win those games was that we didn't play in 2020, because they would have had their confidence shot yet again. It would have been the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Harbaugh's probably out again, like gone, but I am so unbelievably excited to be in Columbus, feel that atmosphere. I might be at Short North Tavern. I might be buying drinks for everybody. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a good time.
I wouldn't call that a wrestling promo the way Ryan Day cut one on Lou Holtz a couple of years ago, but Kevin's clearly excited. As a former Buckeye, clearly excited for the game next week, and I know everybody is, because sure feels like we owe the team up north one, and this again. I mean, you look on paper like we're going to talk a lot about Ohio State, Michigan this upcoming week, but this feels like the kind of game that Ohio State should bludgeon Michigan. I mean, I've said it since week one. I actually think Michigan kind of stinks. And the fact that they were in the top 25, like, to me, just was, name recognition. That they have not been a good football team this year at all. And, this has a chance to feel really good this week. So
Yeah.
you never know. It's rivalry week. You throw it all out the window and see what's going to happen. But Ohio State is playing with a ton of confidence and feeling really good, especially after winning a second top 5 game here in the second half of the season. Today's final score, Ohio State 38, Indiana 15. Lots of coverage available for you on the written side over at si.com/college/Ohio State. And we are ready to turn the page to rivalry week, certainly moving forward here, even starting tomorrow. But I know that we've got some film breakdown we're going to do this week, looking back on a great game for the Buckeyes. So for Kevin Woidke, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. Final score again, the Buckeyes with a 23-point win, decisive blow over the Indiana Hoosiers, 38-15. See you soon.